I think it's really important to give yourself something to work towards rather than just shooting anything. Sometimes I like to have the vision of how I can turn something into a project and make something more than a picture, making it more of an all-rounded story of something. And I just really love doing that.
Welcome to the She Clicks Women in Photography podcast. I'm Angela Nicholson, and I'm the founder of She Clicks, which is a community for female photographers. In these podcasts, I talk with women in the photographic industry to hear about their experiences, what drives them, and how they got to where they are now. Our guest today is Emily Endean, a freelance outdoor photographer from the UK who is addicted to chasing great light, seeking the beauty in the ordinary, and just generally being out in nature. Emily uses her skills across multiple genres, conveying stories, evoking emotions, and preserving moments in time, using her creativity to produce captivating and meaningful images for personal work and big-name clients. Hi, Emily. Thank you so much for joining me today on the She Clicks Women in Photography podcast.
Hello, Angela. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Now, you're joining us today from your van. Where are you actually based at the moment?
Yeah, so at the moment, I'm based in Bournemouth. Yeah, so we're parked up right by the sea. So Bournemouth will always be home to me. So it's really nice coming back here in between things and seeing friends and family.
Yeah.
And we know all the best park ups by the beach as well. So that's good.
Perfect. Oh, well, it's lovely to be there, I guess.
Yeah.
So I know that you started out with a different career. You had a career change towards photography. But what was it that made you think about switching your job?
Yeah, it was a really, really slow process for me. It wasn't a case of just suddenly being like, I'm going to be a photographer. It seemed to be a process of about probably 10 years, to be honest with you, because I just loved photography and it was something I would just do every single day. And it kind of went from me not particularly loving my job to be like, I'd have to get out and do photography every day because I needed that feel-good factor. I needed to see a sunrise, or I need to spend the evening down at the beach just to kind of wash away the day, so to speak. And it was just that hobby growing and growing and growing, and little bits happening here and there, and then going part-time in my insurance broking job to eventually taking the plunge and quitting that altogether. So I think the process was such a long one for me. It happened really, really organically over a long period of time.
And was there anything in particular that triggered you to think, actually, you know what? This could be my career?
Yeah, it was a really strange process because I would have always loved to have a career in photography, but I never really saw it being a reality for me. And I think it was partly perhaps a confidence issue. Imposter syndrome always creeps in, and you look at other people's work and you think, wow, they're incredible. I can see why they have this as a career. And I never really saw that about my own work. And I think that was kind of always in the back of my mind. So I think when you love something, you do it regardless. And because I absolutely love photography, I love getting up for sunrise or seeing the sunset, love being by the ocean, because of all those things were such passions of mine, it was really easy just to keep doing it every day regardless. And it was only, I went part-time in my insurance job because the odd little thing here and there kind of picked up. And I think it was actually doing the little things here and there, starting to make a little bit of money from photography. It was then that I thought, well, maybe I could do this. So it was a real confidence thing of just thinking, was I good enough? And that haunted me for a long time, to be honest.
Yeah, we hear that quite a lot. I think there's a lot of people who suffer from that imposter syndrome. But like you say, just getting those little bits of income really kind of shores up your confidence a little bit, doesn't it? And helps you take those next steps.
Yeah, definitely. And in the beginning, I was a complete traditionalist landscape photographer because I was just heading out down the beach every single morning or evening. I was photographing the ocean at sunrise or sunset in a very traditional way, just being on my tripod, playing with shutter speeds and things like that. So at that point, it was more just selling the odd print. Or I can remember somebody asked me to shoot a wedding and I was like, no, just because I'm good at landscapes doesn't mean that I'm going to be good at weddings. But this person was a friend of my mum and she said, just come and do it. If you get some good pictures, I'll be happy. So there was really low expectations. And I remember doing it and she paid me, I think, 250 quid or something. And I thought, wow, maybe I can do this. It was totally different to shooting landscapes, but I honestly believe I have such a love of photography in general. There's not a lot of things I don't enjoy shooting. And I remember doing that wedding and getting, a small fee for it. And being like, yeah, maybe I could. And it takes other people having confidence in you, I think, to build your own confidence.
Yeah, I think it does. Did you ever sit down and map out your career and have a plan of what you were going to do, what your type of photography was going to involve?
No, I never had a plan at all. So, I mean, I've touched on weddings, but I have to be honest, I don't really shoot weddings. I haven't got any weddings this year. That's not really my thing. It was just one kind of wheel in the cog of how I got moving. But I think it was a realisation of how I just loved being outside, and whether that was shooting landscapes or whether that was getting in the sea and shooting the ocean or the people in it, so the surfers, things like that. I really, really noticed how I was drawn to certain things and how my passion for photography and those elements really came through. So I never really kind of sat back and thought, I'm going to do this type of photography and I'm going to try and get paid for it. It was just doing the things in the environments that I loved that actually kind of led organically from one thing to another. And I ended up doing a few kind of commercial, like lifestyle branded kind of shoots out in those environments, because I realised at a point where, people were shooting products in studio and that wasn't for me at all. But being able to shoot products out in those environments that I loved, those things slowly started happening. And I think it was like in 2020. That was a weird year for everyone. And it was a bit of a pivotal moment for me, because I kind of reached out to a few brands on Instagram just to try and get some products that I could shoot. And at that point, I didn't really have much of a portfolio. So very controversially, I did a few things kind of for free. And it was really just to get me going. And I think there's no right or wrong, and I don't think you should necessarily give your work away for free at all. But for me, it was just to build a portfolio at that point. I had another job, I had a steady income, so it's not like I was relying on money from it. But I really, really needed to build a portfolio, because I thought I just want to be in these environments all day, whether it's photographing sunrise, whether it's shooting for a brand and photographing their products out in a lifestyle environment, or even taking people out and teaching them how to use their camera and get out of auto and how to see the scene as I see it and how I'd photograph it, sharing that knowledge and sharing that passion. All of those things evolved from me just realising I just wanted to be out in that environment all the time.
Yeah, it sounds like Instagram's been quite important to you and to your career, because that's how you reached out to your first clients. Would that be true?
Yeah, definitely. I think Instagram's a great marketing tool, and it's a free one. So, it has its pros and cons, doesn't it, of all social media. But I think you can definitely use those kind of tools to your advantage these days.
Yeah. Do you still work for any of those first clients that you had?
Yeah. The amazing thing is, the people that I kind of emailed at that point and, reached out on Instagram and got something in exchange for a handful of photos by return. And it was really easy to do. There was no pressure from it. Now I've got a series of clients that come back to me. So from providing something really small scale, low budget, free, and I've had clients come back to me off the back of that are regular clients now. And also people who understand, okay, she was doing it early on because she needed a portfolio, but now kind of asking me, what is your day rate? And I think that's a really, really incredible place to be, that they saw the value in what I provided and then in turn come back to me now. So I'd say there's probably, out off the back of that time period in my life, there's probably 3 regular clients that I've got that I do something for most months, or at least once a season. So it's really worked for me taking that approach, and I'm glad I did it, because now that's kind of given me a bit of a boost into having contacts with those clients, but also having a portfolio to back me up as well to go to new clients.
Fantastic. And it, like you say, it's good that they've recognised that you've grown. Would you say that your style has evolved over the years as well?
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. I look back at photos now from a few years ago and I just think, why did I do that? Or why have I edited it that way? But the fun thing is, I'm a file hoarder. I always hold on to all your raw files, because every now and then I might, if I've got a free day or something, I might dip back into an old hard drive and and see what I was photographing, and then pick a handful that I can try and re-edit and just see whether I can make any improvements on that side of things. And it's really interesting doing that. So I think it's always worth holding on to old RAW files and just seeing how you've evolved and changed over the years.
Yeah, definitely. And also, because tastes and styles change, then, you might want to rework the file with different processing. And also, with the AI selection that you can use now, it just makes life so much easier if you just need to brighten a specific aspect of the image or something like that. It's just a lot easier to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of tools that, weren't available when I was first shooting these pictures or editing these pictures. There's so much more that you can do now that it just makes it so much easier.
Now, you were a Fujifilm ambassador, or ex-photographer as they've called, for a couple of years. What was that like?
Yeah, that was really cool, actually. That was one of those moments of, wow, they actually want me to do this. Again, like the imposter syndrome creeps in, and I guess it's that confidence thing again of just thinking, well, why me? And at that point, it was really exciting because I was due to be leaving my job, and to be honest, was really organic. So I'd already had a conversation a year before this even happened of how we could work together, and I was already doing the odd thing here and there. I did a talk for them when the photography show was purely online during COVID, and I did like a half-hour slot for them, and that was amazing. That was my first kind of taste at that kind of thing. But being purely online, I think it gave me the opportunity to hide behind the screen and not worry too much about presenting to people. So I think that was a really good time for stepping into that arena. It took that pressure away of the anxiety of actually talking to people. And also I worked with them on a campaign for a new landscape lens that was coming out. When the 10 to 20 was coming out, God, I can't remember when that was, maybe 2019. We did a little feature where, I say little feature, they actually sent like a videographer to come follow me around for the day, and we got to shooting the landscape around Dorset, and that was incredible. So those were the first kind of things in the relationship with them, and then it really organically led on to being asked to be an ambassador and kind of represent them and work with them really closely. So yeah, it was a really, really exciting time.
Did it have a significant impact on your career, would you say?
I think it did. Yeah, I think it made me feel like maybe I am worthy, maybe I am doing a good job, rather than being hard on myself all the time or looking at other people online thinking they were so much better than me, or I don't know. I think it gave me a confidence boost, basically, to think that I was worth that and I could do that.
It's that validation, isn't it, that we're all looking for, really?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's a big thing as well, because I still look at opportunities now. One of my friends said something the other day, something came in and it was an opportunity to do something, I can't remember, but I still get really excited, and I'm still like, oh, I can't believe it, they came across me. And one of my friends was like, why are you still surprised? I was like, why? Of course I am. But I don't know, other people see these things in you, don't they? And of course my friends and family think I'm amazing. Yeah. That's what people that love you do.
Yes.
But yeah, I still get really, really excited and really surprised when amazing things come to me, or when I've messaged someone and something great comes back from it. I get still really, really excited.
Well, speaking of contacting people and amazing things coming, you still make time for personal projects, like the recent one with the guy who shapes the surfboards. What do you get from projects like that?
Yeah, I think if you're working in photography, sometimes you might have to be just shooting for a client or doing something that you don't necessarily not want to be doing, but where it's not for you, it's for someone else. So I think it's really important to have personal projects on the go as well, because you can follow something you're really passionate about. And as I've been shooting the surf over the last couple of years, I thought it was really interesting how the surfer sees their surfboard, kind of similar to how a photographer sees their camera. It's got to be the tool that works right for them. And it's all personal preference, isn't it? And what feels good for you. So I kind of saw that process being mirrored by the surfers, and I kind of connected with a surfer in Cornwall who shapes his own boards. And I said to him, would you be up for a little project just over a couple of weeks where we photograph from shaping the board to surfing. And I kind of tied it in with the launch of the Fujifilm X100VI because I thought to push myself even further, it'd be really fun to do it with a single camera, single lens, and not have the flexibility of going for zoom lenses. I think it's really important to give yourself something to work towards rather than just shooting anything. Sometimes I like to have the vision of how I can turn something into a project and make something more than a picture, making it more of an all-rounded story of something. And I just really love doing that.
Yeah, well, it looked like a great series. And what you said there about using the X100VI, which has got a prime lens on it, so it's not a zoom lens, and just sticking with that one camera, that one viewpoint. Some people might see that as limiting, but I would see that as quite liberating because suddenly you're throwing out a load of decisions that you don't have to make. You know, you don't have to zoom, you don't have to switch lens because you've decided you're shooting it with this camera, this lens.
Yeah, there was a lot of positives and some negatives as well. But that's the point of a challenge, is to try and work with something to the best you can. And it was incredible for shooting the kind of the documentary stuff, getting up close when he's shaping the board, just the angles I could get, how close I could get, and I don't know, the atmosphere in the room, the dust coming off where he's shaping the board, just all those kind of things were amazing. And also portraits at the shoreline, they were incredible. And then when it came to shooting the surf, I just couldn't get close enough. I just couldn't get the reach. And for a moment, I was just really annoyed. And then I kind of had a word with myself and thought, you know, this is part of the challenge. Let me make this work. Actually, it's probably more about the lifestyle and the wider view than trying to get up close, getting someone doing, you know, tricks in the air as they're coming off the board. That just was never going to happen. But yeah, so I think it kind of pushes you to think outside the box, whereas, you know, I could easily go to the shoreline, put my zoom lens on and photograph someone surfing. There's no challenge in that, really. So by pushing myself and doing something like that, it does really challenge you. And I think that's really important.
Is that something you will take into your commercial work in the future?
As in shooting kind of one camera, one lens?
Possibly, or maybe things that you learnt during that process you'll take into your commercial work.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, because I think especially from shooting the perspectives I did in the studio while he was doing the shaping, I think there was a lot of that documentary process and the way I shot that. I think, yeah, I would definitely take that forward and try and use that in commercial work in future. But also just the kind of documentary approach as well. You know, I've gone from this traditional landscape photographer to this evolving into something else over time. So I think every tiny step you take to try something new always changes the shape of how you are as a photographer. And I think that will always happen because I'm always looking to do something maybe in a slightly different way, or maybe a unique way of how I see things. So yeah, I think that's kind of happening all the time. So yeah, definitely, I think that's pushed me in a slightly different direction sometimes.
Speaking of different directions, a couple of years ago, you decided to move into your Heimer campervan permanently. How's that going, and how has that changed your business?
Yeah, this is it's an exciting topic because it did change everything for me. I think it was taking the plunge of leaving my job and leaving the house right about the same time, which some people probably thought we're a bit crazy. But in my mind, it was probably at the peak of everything I was doing with Fujifilm. I was travelling around the country doing different talks in different places for them. I got to pursue personal projects wherever I could go in the country. So there was lots of things happening all at once, whether that was work or whether that was personal. And by being in the campervan, I've been able to go off and stay different places rather than having to be a trip from you're living in one place in the UK and you have to go back and forth. I could just be wherever I wanted to be, and that made sense to me. And I think at that point as well, it was so easy to be able to say yes to things. One example is I was shooting a wedding in Essex, so we'd gone all the way to Essex, and then the groom was like a director of a video production company, and he said, oh, there's this group of women rowing an ocean, they're looking for a photographer next week, and they're actually having a practice session in Essex. Can you do it? I was like, yes, I can. So I think that it opened up so many opportunities like that one, where I had more option to say yes, because I'm in quite a unique position where I can pursue the things that I want to be doing, which is an amazing place to be.
Yeah. I imagine that it helps you feel a little bit more present, as in you're never sort of at a place thinking, I've got to leave at this time because I need to get back for X, Y, Z, and then we've got to do this, this and this. Because you can actually stay there. Does it help with that? Do you feel more sort of like in the moment?
Yeah, I think it does. It does make you feel that way, because you can travel and truly connect with a place and enjoy a place for longer. Perhaps I can go somewhere with work, but actually, I might not have visited that part of the country before, so this is a good opportunity to spend some time there. And for example, the last month I've spent a lot of time in Wales, and that's kind of come about because I had 2 or 3 jobs around Wales, but actually it's meant that I could spend the majority of the month travelling from different places there, getting to enjoy new locations that I haven't been before, and getting to see it at different times. So being able to be somewhere and not have to rush off and actually stay for sunset or just that as an example, just being able to spend more time kind of makes you more present and not having to rush off, go home as such, because your home's there.
Yeah, sounds great. And of course, you've got all your creature comforts with you.
Yeah, exactly. So, there was a big process of leaving the house, having to get rid of a lot of what we owned, but it makes you hold on to the things that are really important to you and the things that are really special to you. So you get to travel around and have all of those important things with you all the time, which is great.
Lovely. Please excuse this interruption. This podcast is supported by Fujifilm, one of the best-known photography brands in the world. Fujifilm's award-winning X-series and GFX system cameras and lenses are suitable for all types of photographers and videographers. Each has been developed utilising experience gained from more than 90 years in the industry, featuring the unique film simulation modes that everybody knows and loves. OK, let's get back to the show. Well, I think it's a really good time to go to 6 from SheClicks. I've got 10 questions from SheClickers, and I'd like you to answer 6 of them, please, by picking numbers from 1 to 10. So, could I have your first number, please?
Okay, I'll go number 2.
Okay, this is from Yvonne. She says, what's in your camera bag for a typical outdoor shoot?
Good question. So, I've obviously got my Fujifilm X-T5, and the main lens that I've got on there at the moment is the 30mm macro, which is interesting because I don't have to use that just for macro. So I use that a lot in the sea, out in the landscape, and also portraits and commercial work. So it's good, really good all-round lens. But I've also got my 16-80, which also provides a good field of perspective. Of course, you've got spare batteries, memory cards, cloths, because I'm always getting sea spray on the lens. I've got my 3-legged thing tripod attached to my bag and my L bracket.
Oh, yes.
And yeah, normally have a selection of filters in my bag as well. So I think that's about it, really.
I was just going to ask you whether you use many filters.
Yeah, so I've got quite a range, actually. So I've done some work with case filters. So I've got a set of the magnetic filters that just pop on the end of your lens, which they're really, really handy. But I also do some work with a company called Tide Optics, and it's quite interesting because they're probably on the cheaper end of the scale for filters, but they're actually really, really good. And they've got some quite creative filters, like CineSoft filters that give you quite a kind of cinematic, soft approach to a shot. And depending on the light, that can work really well. So yeah, I've kind of got an all-round range of filters, to be honest, kind of catering from the cheaper end of the scale to the more expensive end.
Do you use graduated filters at all?
Yeah, I think this is probably where my photography has changed over the years, because I used to use graduated filters a lot to balance the sky and the land, but I have to say I don't use them anymore. And I don't know if that's because cameras have just become so much better and they've got such a good dynamic range that the detail is always there. So if I'm shooting raw and I'm exposing for the bright parts, exposing for the sky, you can always bring up the shadows on the land. Or in Lightroom, it's really easy to apply a graduated filter when you're editing. I find that I don't need those drop-in graduated filters anymore. So I guess that's where my landscape photography has changed in that respect.
Okay. So could I have another number, please?
Yeah, okay. Should we go number 5?
Number 5. Okay. With your lifestyle or brand photography, what do you do if the weather doesn't play ball on the day? That question's from Liz.
Yeah, that's a good question, because that can be really difficult, actually. So if the weather's absolutely awful and it's really not going to work, then you just have to try and rearrange it for another time, which is very difficult when you're traveling place to place and you might have a location in mind to try and make that work. But I do have a lot of flexibility with the way that I live. That means that sometimes I can think, well, I'll hold out till tomorrow, see if it's any better. But yeah, that can be really, really difficult. Or sometimes you just have to work with what you've got. And that can be quite difficult too. And a good example of that is I had a shoot for a client back in January. It was outdoors and they wanted it to have an all-round year feel of something quite warm that they could use the pictures all year. And it was a really, really cold day. The models I was using were absolutely freezing. They were outside all day. And they had scarves and jumpers on. And the people at the brand kind of wanted it to look summery and were asking them to take their scarves and jumpers off. And I was like, this is really tricky because these people are freezing and I can't make it look any other way than it is because it was a really cold, foggy day. I can't make that look sunny. Sometimes you just have to work with the conditions that are presented to you. So yeah, I think being flexible and being able to move things around is great, but that can't always happen and you just have to work with what you've got. And I think the brand has to appreciate that the one thing out of all of those variables that you cannot control is the weather. So you just hope that you've got a really understanding client sometimes.
Are you quite good at moving on from the fact that the weather isn't what you wanted it to be and you can kind of move on and just accept what it is and work with that?
Quite often, yeah. I think I can, as long as it's not like 60-mile-an-hour winds and rain or storms. I think at that point, you've got to postpone.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you can definitely say if I've expected good light for sunset and I'm shooting a product and the good light doesn't come, it doesn't always matter because sometimes you can get something else out of it, whether it's you focused in a different way and you've got up close details, or you can focus on the tones of a nice bluey sky, or I think there's always something good to get from it. And you have to try and focus on the positives of how you're working with it and be quite adaptable in that way.
Okay. So could I have your third number, please?
Yeah, number 7.
Number 7. Where would be your dream trip in your van? That's from Rebecca.
Oh, in the van? Oh, I think, to be honest, I think it'd probably be to go to Portugal. I've seen so much about how Portugal, driving along the coast, being able to park up by some amazing beaches, see some incredible surf. I think going anywhere in the van, Portugal is very high on my list. But of course, that would mean driving down through a lot of other places in Europe too. So making a big road trip out of like France, Spain, Portugal. I'd absolutely love to do that. So maybe at some point that will be the plan.
You haven't got it in the calendar yet, though?
It's not in the calendar yet, no. There's been so much going on, to be honest. It's a really funny time because I feel like I plan certain things, but then sometimes I don't even know what I'm doing next month. And from a life perspective, that can be difficult. But also from a business perspective, thinking, what am I shooting next month? How am I going to make some money next month? There's all of it that goes hand in hand with planning, but I'm not very good at that. And sometimes I just trust in the universe that the right thing's going to happen, and it usually does. But yeah, Europe will definitely be on the cards at some point.
Exciting. Look forward to seeing those images. Okay, so your fourth number, please.
Okay, we're going to go number 9.
Number 9, okay. This is another question from Rebecca. She says, I love your processing style. Do you use Photoshop or Lightroom or something else?
Thank you. That's super kind. I just use Lightroom, and I'm not very techie at all, so I dabble in Photoshop, but I think Photoshop's such a huge beast that unless you learn the intricacies of what you're going to use it for, I just kind of avoid it. Lightroom does the job for me, and I think I probably spend about 2 minutes editing a photo, and I think that's purely because I love being out taking photos rather than sat in front of the laptop. But there is a lot to be said for editing because you can really bring out of it exactly what you want to show your viewer, or how you want them to feel, how you want to control the light. And I think, again, by shooting in RAW, you've got so much flexibility with what you bring out of that particular photo. So I think it plays such a huge part in that end image. But yeah, I just keep things really simple, just Lightroom all the way.
When you're actually in the process of composing a photograph, do you have something in mind that you want it to look like after you've done your processing? Or do you take the shot and then look at it and sort of tweak a few sliders and think, oh, yeah, that's good, I'll push it this way?
Normally, I try and want an image to look mostly as how I saw it at that moment. So I think I spend most of the time making sure it looks right in camera, because then you can just kind of enhance that or accentuate the good bits that you wanted to once you get back in Lightroom. I think I try and keep everything mostly as it was, like colour-wise. I don't try to alter the colours, because I think when you're using something as beautiful as the light that nature provides to you, I wouldn't want to change that too much. But like I said, my editing style can change all the time. So looking back at those old images and the way I've shot it or the way I edited it back then, sometimes I think things can look a little flat and you can bring a bit of extra light into it. So yeah, I think I do visualise immediately how I want the end image to look, and it's more accentuating what nature gives you than anything else.
Okay. So could I have your fifth number, please?
Okay, I'll go number 10.
Number 10. Is there a style or genre of photography you want to try but you haven't yet?
Good question. I think one style of photography that I really, really admire, because I don't have the confidence with it, is street photography. I went to India back in 2018 and I took a lot of photos that were more street style. And it was more because the people were just so engaging, and, you know, you walk down the street at night and all the front of the shops still open where there's still a lot of activity. And it just looked really cool, and there was lots of people smiling, and everyone was quite engaging and happy for you to take a photo. So I felt more comfortable in that environment, trying a little bit of street photography. And then when I get back to the UK, I just have no confidence with it whatsoever. And I see some amazing street photographers, and I really admire how they've captured the true essence of a scene where nothing's been staged, and the person doesn't even know necessarily their photo's being taken because it's such a natural moment. So I think I massively admire that, because I'm either not good at it or I don't have the confidence to do it. So I think street photography. I've tried most other things, and there are areas that I've not loved, like studio photography necessarily, like product studio, because I find it really boring and there's not a lot you can do with it. There's not a lot of poses you can do. So if anything, it's got to be outdoors. But yeah, I think street photography would be the thing that I wished I could try and be good at maybe one day.
Okay. Okay. So your final number then, please.
Oh, a number 1. Skip all the way back to the beginning.
All right. So this is from Sue. She says, sunrise or sunset?
Oh, that's a good one. Sunrise, 100%, because nobody else is up yet. And everywhere you go is so special and quiet that moment the sun rises and everyone else is tucked up in bed, not even seeing it, that feels truly special. That really feels like you're the only person in the world and nature's putting on this display just for you. But that being said, I really struggle at this time of the year. I just can't get up at like 4 a.m.
Yes.
It's crazy. It's like, I think sunrise at the moment, it's like before 5 a.m. And I really, really struggle with that these days.
Yeah.
I think years ago, I just used to do it and then get on with my day, even though I was absolutely exhausted. But now, maybe because I'm getting older, I just can't do it. So this time of year, I'm inclined more for sunset, but only for that reason. Because if you put in the effort and you can get up, you set the alarm early and get up, I think there's nothing like that feeling of nobody else being around and just watching the sunrise. So yeah, just for that feel-good factor that gives you, 100% I'd choose sunrise. I just got to get out of bed and do it.
You photograph the sea a lot. You love the ocean. Does the state of the tide make a difference to you in the same way that sunrise or sunset makes a difference?
That's a good question, because it can do depending on where you are in the UK, because tides are so different in different areas. Like, for example, if you're on the West Coast, I was in Somerset and I was shooting a sunset of an old wrecked boat, and someone said to me, watch out for the tides. And down in Bournemouth, the tides aren't that different between low and high. It's usually quite similar. So I hadn't really experienced those dramatic tides. And then that day, I understood why someone said to me, watch out for the tides, because you could see it coming in with every wave. It was creeping in about a metre a second. It happened so fast. So I think it depends where you are in the UK. Everything's so very different. But when I'm on the south coast and I'm shooting somewhere like Bournemouth or Sandbanks or Studland or Jurassic Coast, like anywhere along that stretch, the tides don't really have a huge difference in how that kind of reacts for you. But that being said, I'll always check not just my weather apps, but my tide apps, because you want to check the swell as well and the current. And, you know, if you're at the shoreline, and where if I'm photographing like sunrise at the shoreline, for example, I'd like a nice swell because you get a nice wave movement coming in and out, and you get those lovely lines of drawback playing with the shutter speeds and things like that. But then if I'm in the water photographing, I really don't want any swell, and I want it to be very calm so I can focus on the up-close details of the ripples, and it gets really abstract. So I think, yeah, the tides then will have a play in my approach, whether I go out with the housing or whether I go out with my tripod instead. So yeah, I think it all plays a big factor on how I approach things.
You maybe want to pack the car and go to the coast.
Yeah, come on down. I'll be in Bournemouth for the next week if you want to come down.
Okay, I'll keep it in mind. Thank you so much for answering all those questions and for joining me on the podcast today. That's been great to hear from you.
Oh, thank you, Angela. They're great questions as well. So thank you, everyone who put something in.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, thanks, Ange. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the She Clicks Women in Photography podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. You'll find links to Emily's social media channels and website in the show notes. I'll be back with another episode soon, so please subscribe to the show on your favourite podcast platform and tell all your friends and followers about it. You'll also find She Clicks on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and YouTube if you search for She Clicks Net. So until next time, enjoy your photography.